Good morning and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett, I'm the founder of Car Dealer magazine, and today I'm chatting to Robert Forrester, Chief Executive of Vertu Motors, on their results day. Robert, thank you very much for joining us. As always, a very impressive set of results despite an incredibly tough year. What surprised you the most out of those numbers?
Well, we made a profit.
At what point during the year did that?
I think we did a forecast this time last year that was nowhere near a profit when we were in the depth of lockdown one. I'm probably a bit optimistic by this point, but certainly April was not in any way optimistic. So I think the way the business and indeed the industry actually has played the cards it's been given and gone through quite a period of adaptation and change. And the upshot is, between 1st of Jan and the end of March, despite the fact we were absolutely locked down and closed in terms of showrooms and no test drives, we sold 38,000 cars and vans. And think, well, oh dear me, you wouldn't have put money on that this time last year. So I think that's the biggest surprise, that we actually managed to create value and to sort of keep the business with some degree of momentum, despite being buffeted by successive swipes from the government locking us down.
I did notice in your report about there's been some confusion around online sales. I know we've discussed this before. What do you think an online sale looks like?
Well, my new way of looking at it is an online sale is a sale that comes from the web in its general view, and there is a degree of interaction with a dealership, and there's a large amount of online interaction. Could be video chat, video sent, could be the deal shared and offered. And I think we've got to be fairly pragmatic that when people talk about online retailing, that is what they're talking about. Now, if you'd asked me 3 months ago, I'd have given you a very intellectually purist response that an online sale is a customer who is engaging in pure e-commerce and never talks to anybody. And I think there's online, pure online e-com, there's omni-channel, and there's traditional. Now, I'm fighting a losing battle here, so I've just given up.
So there was another note, Robert, that you mentioned in this report that you think these online used car disruptors, the likes of Cazoo and Cinch, have very little, if anything, to add to the sector.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that sentence, James.
I did like that sentence. I thought it was quite telling. I take it these businesses don't worry you from that statement.
Well, I wouldn't say they don't worry me. I think they've been very, very helpful to everybody in the industry in a number of ways. One, it's shot a full beam on the used car market and its potential in the United Kingdom, which actually, from a quoted PLC standpoint, is not unhelpful. It's done some very interesting comparisons between actually how big the UK groups are. And I think if I was going to leave Vertu and go and set up an online used car retailer, I wouldn't start here. I'd go to Europe, because they're rubbish, actually, used cars, in my opinion, historically. Whereas actually, you look at the mega groups we've got in the United Kingdom with strong digital offerings and strong brands and strong capability, and from the 70s onwards, it's probably the most sophisticated used car market in the world. And you've had the likes of Sir Peter Vardy and people who've really professionalized used cars. Arnold Clark. I mean, you could mention used cars without mentioning Arnold Clark. So I think it's a tough gig actually to come into the UK and start disrupting the UK market. Now, is it something we should be complacent on? No, because the other good thing it's done is it's forced everybody to be very clinically pure as to what are we trying to do? What is our capability? Are we as good as we think we are? What are they doing we can't? Very little, as it happens, if anything. In fact, the only thing I think that one of the competitors do that we don't is have branded lorries going up and down the country, giving a branded customer experience. I think that is the only potential gap. But of course, what we do is we sell new cars. We have the manufacturers behind us pumping in millions and millions of marketing. We've got an after-sales business, which is heavily linked to the sales business. We've got massive databases. Our customers visit us every 12 months for a service, and we see them. So I don't feel complacent, but I don't feel too concerned. The concern that's out there for me is the budgets. And I think the battle is actually in marketing. Clearly, it's in marketing. And we've got strategies around that. We've now gone down to 3 brands. We announced this morning that the Farnell Jaguar Land Rover business will be rebranded Vertu. We have a goal to make Vertu the leading premium brand in the UK from a prompted brand awareness perspective, which it isn't today, but we've got a plan to get there. Bristol Street Motors is already the 2nd biggest player in UK franchise automotive with regards to prompted brand awareness. And actually, we've put a slide in our investor presentation. The prompted brand awareness of Bristol Street Motors is double that of the leading disruptor, double in terms of prompted brand. Now, that, in my opinion, will close. That gap will close because it's like an arms race. And let's be fair, they've got a lot more money than we have. So, there's going to be a real battle for brand awareness, I think. That's where the battle comes. I don't think it's a battle for technology.
The other advantage, Robert, that you have is used car supply. Surely, I mean, you can tap your manufacturer franchise dealerships for those good quality used cars that some of these disruptors are really going to struggle to get hold of.
Well, yes, I think that's true. And actually, the biggest source, I think, advantage is we've got this big database of new car customers who like to change their car every 2 to 3 years, and then we bring the part exchanges in. So I think that's a big source. It's not to say that other people can't find cars. They could do deals with leasing companies or whatever. Actually, one of the challenges, as you very well know at the moment, is somewhat following on from new vehicle supply issues, but generally there is a shortage of used cars when the market is absolutely on fire. I mean, the demand for used cars, as it was this time last year, it's a bit of a rerun really, is very, very strong. So I think one of the great challenges in the next 9 months probably is procuring the right number of used cars at the right price to be able to fulfill the demand. I think that's going to be a challenge.
Robert, what do you think the likelihood of some super groups emerging in the next year is likely to be? I mean, the next step surely after these positive year we've had has to be some more consolidation. Do you think that's going to happen?
I think there will be a general move to consolidation. I think the larger groups some of the larger groups, not all of them, some of the larger groups will get larger. I think we will grow. We'll grow in 3 ways, well, probably 4 ways actually. One is our marketing will try and give us additional market share. And I think, we have to be very good at marketing. I think we're getting better at marketing. I'm really pleased. Second, multi-franchising. So putting an extra franchise in a single dealership format, giving us extra after-sales capacity, absorption, and greater new car market share, I think is important. We'll then have our ancillary businesses, and we've featured that in the announcement. We do have quite a lot of businesses that aren't dealerships, which have sort of been hidden away for a while, and we've sort of decided to let everybody know what they are. I mean, Vans Direct is a good example. The Ace Parts online business is a good example. We actually also have one of the largest retailers of taxis in the United Kingdom, which has been a real shocker, actually, as you'd expect in the last 12 months, but is now starting to come back, and it's really interesting. We've got everybody back from furlough, and we're starting to see a big rise in the number of taxis we're selling. So there's the ancillary businesses, and then there's the sort of the traditional acquisitions. And I would expect us to be able to undertake acquisitions over the next 12 months. Are there going to be mega super groups? I think the direction of travel is probably there. There are some much bigger groups in Europe, interestingly, than the UK groups to some extent. And the manufacturers will have a say in that. There's absolutely no question. We don't operate in a field where, we are completely independent. We have to work with the manufacturers because we operate their franchises. But I think there is more of a mood amongst the manufacturers that they'd like to have larger groups. We've got manufacturers where we're 8, 10, 12% of their volume. And as long as we perform on customer satisfaction and on volume, and we operate in a spirit of partnership, then I think that's okay. And you don't want too much exposure either way, either, do you? You don't want to be too exposed to one manufacturer, and they don't want to be too exposed to one retailer. But I think there is the scope for much larger groups in the UK, actually. I mean, the bottom line is we got 4.1% of the new car market.
Yeah, very good point. Robert, you received considerable government support last year, didn't you,
Yes.
in terms of furlough cash and rate relief?
Yes.
What was the discussion in the boardroom about possibly or considering paying any of that back?
Yeah, I think it lasted about 45 seconds. The government closed down our businesses by diktat with very little warning, causing considerable disruption and dislocation. And they provided financial support to offset that. That was what the support was there for. It was to make sure that we didn't come out of it in a much weaker financial position than we went in. So we are doing exactly what the government wanted us to do, which is to use that money to reinvest, to create jobs, and to power forward as the economy grows.
What about in this financial year? I see you've taken £400,000 of furlough support, also reporting record profits for the first 2 months of this financial year. Have you considered paying that back?
No, the government it isn't a thing for me. I think if we're in a different sector, in March, which was the biggest financial month of the year, not a single person could come into a showroom or do a test drive. Not because we decided to close, but because the government shut us down. So I think that the numbers are very small in the context of the overall profitability. So we don't feel that we're hamstrung in terms of normal things that a capitalist company would like to do, like pay dividends or do share buybacks and things like that. We don't intend, unless the government pulls another one and locks us down again and restricts us, that we would anticipate using any furlough money or anything like that. You know, the economy has gone through a massive shock. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Some people have made a loss despite all the government money. And I've never quite got my mind around because our business has actually performed and made a profit, I have to pay it back. That's not something that enters my head very often, to be honest.
And just my final question on this one, what about if any other groups or similar businesses decided to do it in the automotive industry? Would you think differently?
No.
Okay, fair enough. And Robert, you've obviously had a very, very tough year. It must have been incredibly hard for you and the management team. Are you going to take a breather now? Or do you feel like you're out of the woods?
No, we didn't have a tough year. We had a tough week. Actually, we had a very, very tough week. When Boris came on the telly at 9 o'clock at night and closed our business down, that was the worst week. That was incredibly difficult for everybody in the sector. And one thing I would say is the sector as a whole worked together brilliantly. I thought the NFDA did a cracking job of coordination, but the way that the CEOs got together and actually compared notes, what on earth are we going to do with this completely unprecedented situation? And we worked together as, you know, almost friends, actually. And I think we got a lot closer as an industry. And I think that worked really well because it was a fairly lonely job at times, actually, in that first week. I think once you closed the business down, it was then easier to plan to reopen it. Once you started getting momentum, I didn't find it too difficult, if I'm honest. And actually, as long as I get 1 day a week out of 7, looking at the sea in Northumberland, I don't really need a holiday, to be honest.
I don't believe you even get that. Robert, finally, you've mentioned in this report that you think profitability is going to grow again this year. What's that going to be driven by, and what do you think is the biggest opportunity for your group?
Well, there's some uncertainties around COVID, sort of government action, NHS, that sort of thing. Which we have to be mindful of. Can't plan for that. Second element is clearly the new car dislocation around semiconductors, and then that feeding into used cars. So there's quite, some interesting clouds. But the bottom line is our business has got momentum. Marketing's going well. Colleagues are working hard. Colleague satisfaction is at an all-time record. So there's a lot of positives. So given the fact we've also taken the cost base down by £10 million, then we should actually be in a very, very good position, subject to sort of, Chinese satellites landing on dealerships and that sort of thing. So we should be okay. the opportunities are just to run the business very tightly and take it and at each point, what are the opportunities? Where do we go with used car pricing? Are we going volume or price, volume or margin, and just running it as best we can? And then obviously we've done a lot of acquisitions, moving those acquisitions to produce the returns they should produce. And we're on a journey with that, and I'm pleased with where we got to with that. But you know, still a long way to go, long way to go. And I just think that the management and the colleagues have just done a really, really good job. And actually, I've enjoyed it apart from that 1 week.
Robert, I'm incredibly impressed by your enthusiasm as always. Congratulations to you and the team on a brilliant year, and I wish you the best of luck for the
Thanks so much, James, and thanks for your help.
Really good to see you. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so for more car dealer lives like this one, you can log on to cardealermagazine.co.uk and click on the live tab at the top of the page. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.